Hey everybody, this is Dr. Carter. We're at a point in our course where your first writing assignment will be due, and I've done this in most any course that I teach where there are significant writing assignments, and that's produce a video that helps get you started in the right direction. And so we're going to be covering um, the instructions, going over some of the highlights there. We're going to be looking at your grading rubric, which is basically what I'm going to be using to grade your paper. Um, the reason I do this is because writing well using APA format can be challenging to any graduate student. I know it was to me, and it can be anxiety provoking. So I want to allay some of those fears or concerns that you've got, and hopefully this video will be a step in that direction. Let me start by telling you a story, kind of a personal anecdote. So not too long ago, in another class that I'm teaching, I get an email from a student, and this was around week 6 of week 8, and her email was basically saying, Dr. Carter, I don't understand why you spent so much time talking about style and format in my paper. I've been using MLA format for years in my undergrad work, and I just don't see what you're seeing. And so I thought about it for a minute and very gently responded back and said, listen, I said, I hear your concern. I said, but in our instructions and in the syllabus, it's been very clear that the format that we're using is APA format. And the thing is it's not just a Liberty thing. It's in any graduate counseling or psychology program, that's going to be the standard that's used. So the point of telling you that story is don't be that student. Don't get caught unaware. Read the instructions, look at the rubric, what I'm going to be grading you with, and be prepared. So that being said, let's take a look at your couple of the highlights of your reaction paper instructions. So I'm just using, my eyes cut away, I'm just using a second screen here to go through some of these things. So when you think about this assignment, you're going to be asked to look at 3 specific aspects in your main section, and that is to summarize, reflect, and act. And not only are these kind of organizing principles for your main body, but they're actually headings that need to appear in your paper, and the instructions make that very clear. So make sure that those are actual headings. So let's talk about what each one of those words mean in the context of this paper. So to summarize something simply means to provide an overview, often of the highlights or the main sections, the most important principles of a longer, more elaborate document, a paper, or in this case, Chapter 10 of Sanders, which is what you're going to be basing this assignment on. So it's a clear overview of the material that you're reading. Contrast that with a paraphrase, which this is not, which is basically putting things into your own words, but often it's the same length and size. So this is a summary, which is just an insightful précis of a longer, more elaborate work. So you're going to summarize Chapter 10 of Sanders, and you're going to condense it into about 1 to 2 pages. So the next section that you're going to be focusing on is reflect. And in reflect, and I'm just kind of looking at your instructions here so you can follow along or read this later, but you're going to answer such questions or address such statements as, what bothers you about the chapter? Or, I am reticent to accept blank because blank. Or, this technique will help me to blank. So you're going to explain the concepts that you took away by giving examples from your own personal experiences. And so you're going to be mixing content with your own experiences as you reflect on what you've read. This section will also be about 1 to 2 pages. And then finally, the last section is act. And in this section, or in the instructions, you'll see there's actually a sentence that's bold-faced. And that always means, hey, pay attention, this is important. So here, you're going to be specific as to what techniques, strategies, or concepts you're going to use from this chapter. And basically, this is a section that's going to ask you to comment on what's going to change now that you're aware of this information. What actions are you going to take? What changes are you going to implement as a result of this new information now that you have? This section is also about 1 to 2 pages. So once you're done with your paper, and there is, of course, there's a title page requirement, there's an abstract requirement, there's a reference requirement. Those are also listed in your instructions. So in your next step, you're going to be submitting your work to SafeAssign. There are 2 links. The first link is a draft link, and you're going to submit your paper to that draft link and typically wait about 24 hours or so. Oftentimes sooner, but it can sometimes take up to 24 hours. So keep that in mind and as you submit your paper so that you have enough time to get back the report. So once you get the report back, it's going to give you some indications of whether or not there's any question about plagiarized material, whether or not there's any concerns. And once you review that and make any necessary changes, then you're going to submit the final copy to the second link, and then you're done. Okay? Let's move to your grading rubric. Grading rubrics are pretty cool things. If you've not come across them before in any of your undergrad, or if you've had more than one course at Liberty, a grading rubric is basically a document that helps you as the student understand what aspects of your work are going to be graded and what point totals are assigned to each. So that's a pretty neat thing to understand and to know before you go in. It's also a good thing to review so that there's no surprises how things are going to be weighted, right? So one of the things I want you to focus on and look at in this document is how many potential points you can lose simply by missing things on format, grammar, and writing style. In other words, features of your paper that have nothing to do with actual content, but everything about how you write it, whether or not you use the right style, whether or not it was communicated effectively, you were focused, etc. So your format, your grammar, and your writing style potentially count for 24 points out of a total of 80 points, which is what this paper is worth. So please make sure that you're aware of how to format your paper, do a spell check. That's a given at this level of work, that your sentences are smooth and provide good transitions, that you use good headers, that your writing is well organized. Instructors and professors are human too, and basically what that means is you could have wonderful content, but if it gets lost in something that's poorly organized or poorly written, it's going to reflect on your grade. So the best way I can tell you is sometimes how things are written are almost as important as what is written, so that your message is communicated. Hopefully that makes sense. I guess that's all I want to mention under rubric. Let's talk a little bit about sources, or about places you can go for help. If you look behind my right shoulder on my bookshelf back there, there's a book that's facing out towards you. That is the publication manual of the APA, and that is the Bible for all things related to publication, submitting papers, anything that is written using the APA format. That is the final authority. You should already have that in your library, and that is the final word on how to do citations, references, headers, secondary sources, etc. Now, other places that you can go. Some of these I've already highlighted for you in an announcement from last week, where I gave you some links to some helps and some resources, but I'm going to mention a couple of those again. Liberty has an online Writing Center, which is very good at providing you some resources for um, writing in APA format. They also have people that you can call and help you with formatting your paper in APA style. They have videos you can watch, so please take advantage of that resource if you need it. The other place that I would refer you to is a site that is through Purdue University, and that's called Purdue OWL. And OWL is an acronym for Online Writing Lab. And you can just put in your search engine Purdue OWL, and that will come up. It's a great resource. It has lots of detail about some of the same things that you'll find on our Liberty Online Writing Center. How to do citations. There's a sample of an APA paper that you can use, and I think I'm going to send you one as well so that you'll have a guide from me. So those are some great resources to use if you get stuck or you're not sure. You can always email me as well, and I can try to help you through whatever question that you might have. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you. Good luck in not just this assignment, but in the writing assignments coming up in the next few weeks. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks, guys.